Okay, good afternoon. We're going to start the governance meeting. I think before I start with courtesy of the floor, can we have those folks that are on Zoom that are joining us today identify themselves so we know who's here? Because I realize some other board members are joining via Zoom.
Hello?
Well,
Hello?
yes,
Hi, Ron.
Oh, I just wanted to make myself known.
okay. How about the rest of the folks that are on Zoom?
Hi, Julia Geisinger is here.
Thank you.
Hi, Margie Dorenzis is present.
Thank you.
Hi, and this is Dan Lopresti.
Thank you.
Are we able to see these folks on our screen? Oh, now they're there. Okay, thank you.
Just at the top, right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for joining us. Is there any courtesy of the floor this evening?
I thought I'd informed council before, but I just wanted to go over what occurred in Harrisburg. So the state Senate did pass a resolution, actually a bill, authorizing the treasurer to loan the money at an interest-free rate, but it was at her discretion, instead of just making it interest-free. It was her discretion as to whether or not she would the House has not acted on it. It's still in, I think, the Appropriations Committee. But I have requested of the Treasury a $10 million loan at 0% interest.
Thank you. Any other courtesy of the floor? Okay, the first item is discussion with the Elections Commission regarding the location of satellite offices. And I thank all of you for being able to make the time today. When we were informed at council, we were informed by the administration, and I wanted to hear from you folks what occurred and what your process was. So Dr. Levy's here, if you want to come forward. Dr. Gavin Levy, if you want to come forward and speak as chair. You are still chair, correct?
Yes, I'm still chair. Good afternoon. My name is Sharon Gavin Levy. Thank you for the opportunity. Following last year's election, we reviewed some of the problems that took place at the polling places throughout the Lehigh Valley. And one of the most significant took place on the south side of Bethlehem, and that's the one that received some, it was a newsworthy problem. It made the students from Lehigh University, there were long lines, and one of the current concerns that we had that came up at our meeting was the fact that many people who reside in that area, who are not students at Lehigh University, were unable to vote. I know of a person an elderly person who went and could not wait online, then came back again. Her daughter brought her, and she just did not vote. And so after much discussion, we talked about, what would be some of the ways that we might resolve this problem. And so the idea of having a satellite office similar to what, many people came here to the election board right here in this building and voted, prior to the election. So part of our discussion was to, consider the idea of having a satellite office in which people could do that, prior to the election as well. So that was the backdrop. And it wasn't only this, that was the most critical site, but we, as an election commission, discussed problems that existed at various polling places and what were some of the issues and so forth. And so we voted, and we did, we did support the idea of a satellite location, I believe, on the south side, locating one on the south side of Bethlehem, and then also to locate a site in the northern part of the county as well. So that's the backdrop. I don't know if any of my colleagues from the Election Commission would like to add anything to that, but that was the backdrop of how this came about.
Anyone else that wishes to speak who's on Zoom?
This is Julia Geisinger. I would just like to add a couple of things to Sharon. I appreciate her words and how she outlined everything. What she didn't mention was that some of us were concerned that this process was perhaps not allowed by the law, which I think is still up for debate. And also that we were told at different times that it would cost no money. And then in an email from our solicitor, we were told that it would cost some money, but it would be nominal. We're having a hard time since there has been no plan presented to us, no plan for the hours or how, IT will be set up or how votes would be guarded so that, everything is taken care of, and how this was not going to cost any more money, especially setting up maybe 2 locations, but setting up any locations. And so that was number one. And number two, how we can tell it was pushed forward without a plan. It was pushed forward without any studying done or research about how this would help at all, which hours would be most effective, et cetera. Nothing, no details were given. And we were told that we needed to try it out. Well, to my understanding, I think there were about 44 people who voted in that area in the primary. So how this is going to be in the fall in an off year, some kind of testing ground to see if it's going to alleviate the stresses that were held in the 2024 election. It's just beyond my comprehension why this is being pushed forward. To me, it feels very political. That could just be my perspective. But, in good faith, even if it's not political, I don't think the things were addressed that were concerned, at least some of our concerns about having a plan and what it would cost when it was proposed. And then we voted 3-2 along party lines.
So when she's saying that it was pushed forward, who's doing the pushing? Is she referring to you or is she referring to someone else?
I think that if I can just respond to, we certainly don't feel that, we feel that people having the right to vote, enfranchisement is critical. And so this was in no way political. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have a place in the northern area as well, so that if people perceive this as political, well, we are also making access in the northern areas equal. My concern was, and we did vote on party lines, it was 3-2. But we are very concerned about that people have access to vote, that people who live in the community don't lose their right to vote, because we have long lines, because we have Lehigh University students who have the opportunity to vote. And if we had another year like last year, I think it would be worthwhile to explore and to do it this year. Do we want to have a repeat of 2024 and 2028 when people actually when people lose their vote because they don't have a polling place that can accommodate them? And so, there are many things that take place that we do before we do research. And I'm an educator in higher education. I certainly believe in research and study and so forth. But we really have to figure out a way to address this issue so that people don't lose their right to vote. And we saw many people, we know people did not vote. And so we have to figure out a way that people have an opportunity to vote. And if they, we saw it was effective here, and if we could have a satellite location that was perhaps open 2-3 days a week, that would alleviate the long lines that were experienced, I certainly think it would be worth it. So absolutely, it was supported on party lines. But let me say, regardless of my political affiliation, greater than my affiliation is my belief that this country ensures everybody the opportunity to vote.
So, but when she stated who pushed it, she used that term. What does she mean by that?
I don't know. You'll have to
Or it
ask
was
her.
pushed. Okay.
I know how I voted. 3 of us voted to support it.
Well, who presented the original idea, I guess, maybe? Like who, and I guess while you're saying this, it sounds like you did some vetting and looked at different scenarios and other problems that day. So were there any other places that you were considering or that were highlighted as problems
other-
that we're not aware of?
Other polling places, none that presented the problems that this particular place presented. There were issues in other sites, but none that rivaled the issue that took place on the south side of Bethlehem.
If I could, this is Julia Geisinger again. There were long lines in other areas as well, like Palmer. And to answer your question, Mr. McClure's office pushed this forward to the election committee and made it an urgency without any background information. And I'd also just like to say for the record, I do not believe in disenfranchising any voters of any party to vote. And I would like to just state that that is not my intent. In bringing this forward, I would like to keep the law, keep the election law, study things out that make sense, and make sure the proper appropriations are made from the appropriate bodies in order to make voting fair and not disenfranchise any voters.
I think we do have studies that indicate that we're not the only county. There are other counties in the state of Pennsylvania that do have satellite satellite voting places. Mike, maybe you could.
Michael Vargo, as part of I was requested by the Election Commission to look into the legality of the satellite elections office. What I found was that satellite election offices are not only allowed, under certain circumstances they are required, that satellite elections offices that offer services similar to what are being offered at, or what was proposed to be offered at the satellite election office here in Northampton County, are operated. I believe the County of Philadelphia operates 6 or 7. There was actually litigation involving those satellite election offices by parties that had every incentive to litigate the actual legality of the offices, and they chose not to. Specifically, in 2024, the Donald Trump campaign challenged whether or not satellite offices were considered election board meetings or polling places, such that whether or not there would be entitled to have a poll watcher or be open to the public. And the court determined that no, satellite elections offices are neither polling places nor are they election board meetings, so they're not technically, don't have to be held open to the public. They don't you don't have to allow poll watchers at them. I think it is in Montgomery County, they actually have a converted ice cream truck that they use as a mobile elections office. That what they're dealing with is more, some of what they deal with is things that we don't even dream of dealing with. It's things like correcting mistakes on ballots, things like that. This office is very specifically limited in what it does because of that. I know one of the issues brought up had to do with transport of ballots. And I believe that's one of the reasons why we do not collect ballots at the satellite election office. There's a drop box there, but there's been a drop box there before. And in fact, that is some of the original litigation over drop boxes. Basically, what the court said was, well, since you can have satellite elections offices, drop boxes are also okay. Well, that works backwards to say, well, then if drop boxes are okay, guess what? So are satellite elections offices. So the drop boxes are not specifically listed anywhere in the statute, but the court basically said, since you can have satellite election offices, you can also have drop boxes. And that's what I found in my research on the issue.
I think some of my colleagues had some questions. Mr. Warren?
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Bountage?
Thank you, Madam President.
Excuse Margie Dorenzis. need to wait. Mr.
Margie,
Warren.
I'm having trouble hearing you. Every third word is being dropped. I apologize.
Now?
Kind of.
Try.
Typically, my Zoom works well. I'm
There you
not
go.
sure what.
You're good now.
We think it's us. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. I was actually made the motion for this satellite to be available to voters. And it was real, plenty of information regarding the vote.
You're cutting out, Ms.
You're
Durensis.
cutting out every other word, and I apologize, but I think Mr. Heckman is feeling very vindicated right now that that's happening to you, if I'm not wrong.
If you don't mind, Madam President, I did have a question I wanted to bring up because, first and foremost, I appreciate everybody's service in terms of being on the Election Commission. It's a very, very important commission, and I appreciate every single person's work on there. But, Ms. Geisinger, I believe you used the phrase that the law is up for debate with regard to these satellite offices. Mr. Vargo, you were just specifically saying the law allows this. So I'm not sure, how can the law be up for debate when we know that it actually is allowed by law to have satellite offices? I just want to make sure that folks on our election commission understand the law. Ms. Geisinger, I'm not sure if you have a response to that, but I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page with regard to the law, the letter of the law that is allowed here in this county. You may have to start over again, Ms. Geisinger, because you're cutting out on our end. You are still cutting out,
I
ma'am.
think I need you to put it in the chat. I apologize again for the umpteenth millionth time in 7 years for the inadequacy of our system. Are there any other questions or comments while we're waiting for them to type in the chat? Go ahead.
Mentioned when you were going through your evaluation of this, it should be researched. Can you enlighten me on, based on your experience of the past election, which is the motivation for the satellite office, compared to the prior, what was different between the two?
Well, actually,
Would
this,
have presented, because
this-
as far as I know, there hasn't been ongoing, growing issues coming out of this one polling place, so what was different?
I just think the scale of the past presidential election. This is actually my first presidential election on the Election Commission, 2024. I was not on the commission in 2020. But I just think the volume of the people voting and and then, of course, Lehigh University. So just the volume of people voting at that particular that location.
But volume in and of itself, the county is able to flex around that, because that's not uncommon in certain areas where you get an onslaught of voters, or you get a breakdown, and you get limiting, so fundamentally, I'm not sure what was so different that we're taking this step. And I'm raising that point because to your point that it should be researched. It should be more fact-based information provided as opposed to you made, the election board made the decision it did, so be it, but it's not, to my satisfaction, I don't really understand all of it as to would that really be the result or the actual cure? Because I think we're all looking for a cure to make sure.
That doesn't happen again, absolutely. I know at that particular polling place, people were waiting 5, 6, 7 hours. Now, I don't know that was the case in 2020. And I do think the fact, I think there are numbers here that indicate that even the voting, people who voted here in this building probably alleviated voting voting throughout the county. I don't have the numbers for 2020. It's not so much for example, this year, I would not anticipate the volume, but if we continue to have, we don't want to see a repeat of 2024. We don't want to see people not voting because they're unable to stand in line for 5, 6, 7 hours. Yes, Lehigh University students can, but not everyone in that community. So if there were a place where people could, as they came here to this building and voted ahead of time, I think that's what we were hoping to do. That's the purpose of this, so that we will alleviate people waiting, having a polling place in which people wait. I mean, you wait when you vote, and you wait. It's not uncommon. When I go to my polling place, it's not uncommon to wait, 15, 20, half hour, maybe 45 minutes if it's very busy. I live in Bethlehem Township, but to wait 2, 3, 4, 5 hours as it did occur there, we're trying to alleviate. We're trying to be proactive so that we don't have a repeat of this in 2028.
I think the concern simply that seems to be coming forth is, while we agree that we want to make sure it's accessible and no one should wait 5 hours to be able to vote, I'm not getting the facts. So it's like, oh, we had an issue, here's a solution. That's not a way to make permanent and successful change. It's a knee-jerk reaction to a problem. And I'm not getting, hey, yeah, here's why, there are X, Y, and Z, and this is the solution that we know is going forward. Why not just add another voting machine or two?
I do believe that happened.
That gets done at time at various places. So, and to your point, this year's an off cycle, so the rush to push, it's just not something that I think has been well thought out and planned. And therefore, I just have challenges with it, and there's a lot more information that needs to be provided, I think, to this body to make an accurate assessment of whether or not it is a solution moving forward. But thank you for your service.
I'd like to be able to read some of the chat that's popping up if we can. I need you to scroll it down, or do you want to read it? I can read it. Go ahead.
Mr. Renza says there were about 7,000 people who voted at the courthouse during the presidential election, the majority of whom were Republicans. The office was very cramped, and they were looking for a way to alleviate some of that crowding. The long lines at the banana factory made it a likely location to alleviate the crowd. We also needed a place that would accept such an opportunity, and the Fowler Center met the criteria of having a drop box and a place for staff to work. We also agreed to have a satellite office in the northern tier at Mr. Huff's request, but apparently that request was thwarted by the Republican chair, who was opposed. Lafayette College has its own polling place on campus, which is greatly appreciated by the residents of College Hill. It is my understanding that it was following the chair's recommendation. Regardless, it was rejected in a more Republican area.
And then Ms. Geisinger has comments in between.
Ms. Geisinger states it's a matter of interpretation of the law. The law says that the appropriating body can create a satellite office, and that is county council, not the county executive. The Washington Board of Supervisors rejected the proposal, not the chair. No, I think that's it. I kind of put them all together.
Madam President? if you don't
Yes.
mind. Yeah, so to continue with this, I mean, I do think this is going to happen again at some point down the road. I mean, this election cycle, probably not. But we've got a presidential election 3 years from now. And as our area, as Northampton County continues to grow in population, we are going to likely have more voters. And this is something that's not going to change. I do not believe that our population increase is going to slow up anytime soon. That being said, the satellite offices seem to be, in my opinion, and it goes against what some folks have said on this dais, a great way to anticipate what may happen in 2028, because I believe we are going to see it, whether it's in the borough of Northampton in my district, or whether it's in the borough of Bangor, it could happen, Bethlehem, Easton, wherever. This could happen someplace here in the county. So I believe these satellite offices to be a good idea. Now, from what Ms. Geisinger said in the chat here, saying that the law's up for interpretation, Mr. Vargo, is there any way you can address this? Because I want to make sure if the law says that we're able to have these satellite offices, and we are able to have these satellite offices, I'd like to get a better handle on what it's up for interpretation with regard to perhaps the executive branch or the legislative branch from what Ms. Geisinger said.
That's my reading of the statute. I apologize. I did not anticipate responding to this specific question, so I don't have my notes with me today on this specific issue. But the way I read the statute is that the satellite offices are permitted.
They're permitted to be established, correct? And through the election office that is run by the executive branch of our county government, correct?
And some of it goes to the, this is an issue that's been addressed before, but not in this specific realm. The way there are significant, I don't want to say deficiencies, but the way the administrative code, the home rule charter, and the fact that we are a home rule county interact with the elections code leave a lack of clarity on many issues. Because in a non-home rule county, it's simple. Because first of all, the executive and the legislative are united in a single body, and the members of that single body are the election commission. So that's how the election code is written, presuming that every other county is that all counties operate that way. Things get more complicated when trying to look at how the election code then interacts with the home rule charter and the administrative code, which reserve all legislative functions that anything that refers to a county commission, the legislative functions of a county commission are assigned to the council. The executive administrative functions and I apologize, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I do not have my notes or the documents in front of me, are then reserved to the executive, including administration. Various parts of the administrative code and the home rule charter include elections under their supervision of the administration, but there is also an election commission. The election commission also exercises certain functions. So that is what makes things especially unclear. The one thing we do know is that the election commission, and this is my recollection of what happened when the voting machines were acquired. So my understanding of this predates my time as even with the solicitor's office, let alone as solicitor of the election commission. My understanding of that process was that the election commission voted on a recommendation, but the actual appropriation to acquire the machines was made by council as the legislature. The executive then executed the appropriation, executed all the contractual documents, administered the actual acquisition, transportation, storage, maintenance, and all the other things that have to do with, now that we have the machines, what happens to them and how we actually physically obtain the machines. So it's the executive, unless I'm mistaken, that signed all the contracts related to that did the actual contracting. So that's the closest example I can immediately think of as to when these three pieces had to interact on a major issue. So I don't I don't know how helpful that is in this particular circumstance, but that's really the issue, is that piece of it is very unclear.
I just want to know if we're allowed to do it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
from my understanding, the law says we're allowed to do it.
My interpretation is that
We're allowed to.
Yes, that we're allowed to do it.
If I may?
Can I,
To
Wait,
Ms.
there's-
Geisinger's point, though,
go ahead.
I'm sorry?
The law says the appropriating body is county council. There's no lack of clarity as far as who has authority to create a satellite office. That's Ms. Geisinger's statement. And then you did say regarding the cost, we were assured by the administration that the cost was covered in the budget. It's hard because I can't scroll myself.
Okay,
Sorry.
So, on several points now, that's your reading of the best you can, based on your research, your interpretation of how it all comes together based on what's currently in place law-wise. And that is really the point that I think Ms. Geisinger is making, is it's subject to interpretation. And to you're in the position to interpret it on behalf of the administration. I got that. That doesn't mean that to Mr. Warren's point, that it's not subject to interpretation and can be interpreted by another body the other way. And that's, I think, part of the clarification we're seeking. And to your point, and I appreciate that you bring it up, is that you got three bodies here that are circling this topic. And because of that, there needs to be a lot more clarity on how this gets executed and move forward in the future. That's my comment on that conversation. I do have one question for the current satellite office. Is there a lease involved with that space, Mr. Executive? How is that space acquired where it currently resides?
There's two offices, right? There's two.
I think there's only one,
so-
but let him finish.
What I could say is on both of those questions, Washington Township was where the county was, the administration was seeking to put a Northern Tier office. The council there declined our request. We were looking for locations that already had drop boxes because, as I mentioned before, the issue with we do not want elections workers having to deal with transporting ballots or actually accepting ballots at the satellite locations. With regards to the lease, I only know because I reviewed the contract. There is a lease with the Fowler Center at $0 for the use of the facility during the election, the small part of the facility we use during the election. So yes, there is a lease, but the cost of the lease is $0.
So along that line, because that involves real estate, all leases, all real estate transactions are required to come before council for approval?
I don't know, and I cannot comment on that.
Okay, well, I would like
Not
an
anything I've
answer
ever
to
looked
that, because
into,
my
so.
understanding is all leases, all real estate transactions are required to come before council for approval, AKA, an MDJ office, while the courts get to pick them, do what they want, it still is required before the executive would sign that contract for council to authorize the real estate transaction on that. So I would appreciate a follow-up response if you could research that and come back, because I do believe that matter should have come before council for approval as a lease. Regardless of anything else, that should have come through this body before it was executed.
That's not an issue I've ever been asked to look into before.
Well, you're first time for everything.
What I would say is there are
And,
similar,
Okay,
there are
and
similar agreements for every one of
That-
the
that's fine.
160 polling places.
what I would also ask is that our solicitor be asked that same question, Aileen, for that. Thank you. I appreciate your comment.
So if I could just jump in here, and I'm seeing, I think there's a thing that I missed that Mr. Renz has said. Could you roll it down for me, please? Because I'm not allowed to roll for myself apparently on this machine either. It was most certainly not a partisan motion on my part. And I wanted to say that because my intention in asking you all here is not about dividing anymore, and I really appreciate most of you jumping on today. My concern whenever we do have an election meeting is that you have not been able to be present nor asked. I do have a concern about the authority of the Election Commission, and not that you have it, but that I don't believe you have enough of it. And I feel like some of your authority has been usurped in some ways. And I think Mr. Vargo articulated it well, but it sets me right up for the next two items that I'm going to be discussing this evening. That when I look in this administrative code, it says who the administration is supposed to be overseeing, and the Election Commission is not on there. So to be able to have to hear everything via the administration and not the commission itself, and not having direct requests, is a problem. It's very helpful that Mr. Vargo's here to represent those concerns, and Mr. Kameni when he can be. But even, Mr. Kameni's not here because we were told by the administration that he could not come, that they were too busy and they weren't allowed to come. And we're the oversight body, so we need to have this communication. So I appreciate that you're here today. I hope we can continue that in the future, whoever stays on this board. And again, we weren't told by you what the process was or how it came to be. It's the first time that I'm hearing that other places were considered or thought about. I had never heard the anecdotal evidence that there were neighborhood folks, not Lehigh students, who were disenfranchised by this. And now that you say that, of course, because if I get a ride and I don't drive, and I only have this window that my ride's going to be there, I'm probably going to go home, and I think a lot of people did. So I just also wondered how that Washington Township place was selected, only because when we were speaking last year, I know Plainfield Township seemed to have a lot of difficulty. So just wondering what other processing you had all done regarding some of the other problematic areas. And always asking all of you, if you don't have enough equipment, if you're hearing that you don't, come to us, because we want to provide that for you. And so if you're, I don't know how else that messaging gets here, but we would love to hear from you. I just appreciate your time in that matter. Now, is there anything else as part of this discussion that you think is forthcoming or concerning that you want to continue to look at? Are these just pilots and you're going to be looking at other places? Or, I don't know if you want to answer, Dr. You have to be at the mic, sorry.
Based upon our discussions at our meetings, yes, I guess I also need clarity in terms of where we go from here. We would like to move forward on these satellites, but if we need your approval, I don't know what the process is from this point out, but yes, it would be our goal to move forward on these satellite offices, because ultimately it would not only assist in the south side, but the entire county. I agree with the point that you made. Our county is growing, just in terms of, look at the issues we have in terms of housing and so forth. People are coming to this area. So clearly more people will be here, more people will be voting. So this problem is not going to go away. And so, I would not want to address this issue in 2028. I think this issue needs to be addressed. And so, yes, I would like to see it move forward. I would like to begin identifying and opening these satellite offices.
Madam President.
Yes.
I'd like a number of recommendations, to be honest with you. Because, as I said during our last council meeting, I am very much under the belief that we should have a number of these throughout the county.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether they are in our more rural areas, more suburban areas, more urban areas of the county, I think we should have a better understanding of where we might need these in the future to alleviate from issues that are going to happen in the future, because they will happen in the future for sure. So I would personally like more than just the one.
Mm-hmm.
Could have a number of them.
Ms. Geisinger's added that why not alleviate the issues in Bethlehem, Palmer, Plainfield, et cetera, by providing more voting machines. That I would defer back to your team, and you bring us those recommendations. I don't necessarily disagree, but I'm also not in charge of deciding who puts what machines where, so I think we need to be looking at that more carefully. Is there anything else that, well, is this scheduled to start? Is this time? Mr. Vargo, is this happening? Feels weird to say Mr. Vargo out loud, sorry. The only other major Mr. Vargo I used to call Dad, so there you go.
It's a little odd.
Or Grandpa, you're neither of them.
Yes, the satellite election office at Fowler is up and running, as far as I know.
So it has been implemented.
Yeah, the hours, I believe, are posted on the website, along with the hours for drop boxes and the election office. I believe there was a press release, or at a minimum, there's information on the website about the extended hours at all, like, because there's also extended hours here for basically all election services. I think it's till 6 p.m. most nights, but I know it's on the website, and it's probably in the same press release and/or posting on the website.
I had just a couple other clarifying questions. How many meetings a year do you have as a commission?
My calendar in my purse. Oh, wow. I think we have 2 or 3 official meetings. But there are other meetings that we have when we have to come and sign. But I'm not sure the number of official meetings. I'd have to look at my calendar.
And who calls the meeting? Like, who sets the schedule? Who
The,
calls the meeting?
the election commission.
So you set your own?
No, I know we have a meeting, I believe, we will have a meeting in November after the election. We have a meeting, I believe it was July or August, a certain number of weeks prior to the election. Can't remember if we met, that was July or August. But we have at least 2 or 3 official meetings.
Any other questions or comments? Thank y'all for being here, and I hope you would come again.
All right, just let me know ahead of time. Yes.
We'll post it, but we'll try to get that out to you before.
Okay. Thank you.
And thank you all for being on Zoom. I appreciate it. Additionally, like I said, Chris couldn't be here, or nor Amy, but Michael Colon is going to be presenting. I had asked them to give us some data like they normally do, so I appreciate that that was able to be obtained. And if you want to read that.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, members of council. Michael Colon. So Mr. Comini, our elections registrar, Ms. Hess, our deputy elections registrar, as was referenced, are busy working downstairs, typical hours, evening hours, weekend hours. So I was able to get some, some numbers for everybody to share this evening. And of course, as we progress along towards the general election, we could always give updated data in regards to where we are with certain things. So to confirm what Mr. Vargo had said, as it relates to the satellite office at Fowler, those hours are posted on the county website. So everything is easily accessible. I pulled it up from my phone. I apologize, I don't have the information referencing those hours with me, but it's all right with the mail-in absentee balloting, registration information, easy to find on the county website. We did send out just a press release earlier noting that the only polling location change from the primary election for the general election is going to be in Wind Gap Borough, where it was previously the fire hall, and it's going to be the municipal building due to the fire hall being up for sale. So that's the only change in terms of polling places from the primary to the general election. As it relates to balloting, there have been 31,752 ballots that have been sent out, and as of today, 9,103 ballots were received back by the elections office. We do have a number of drop boxes around the county, as everyone is aware. So I'll give you the numbers to date of collection. So altogether, there have been 1,427 ballots received via Dropbox. That is 300 from the Rotunda here at the Government Center, 594 from the DHS building, 278 from the 911 Center, 200 from Bethlehem City Hall, 36 from East Allen Township, 8 from Washington Township, and then 11 from the Fowler Center at Northampton Community College. So those are numbers as of today, but of course we have a few weeks leading up to Election Day. And then also, I could just give you the general breakdown. I won't get into all the third-party candidates, as we have a few that are pretty interesting to read in this county that I recommend everybody look at when you have time. But in terms of affiliation, we have sent out 324 ballots to registered independents, to which 94 were received, 7,603 to registered Republicans, in which 2,263 were received, and then 20,576 to registered Democrats, to which 5,997 have been received. So that's a general breakdown of where we are to
Could you
date.
just repeat the Republican returns?
Of course.
I just can't write that fast.
2,263 as of today.
Thank you.
So that's a general summary of what Mr. Comini and Ms. Hess were able to provide me today. Is there anything else I may be able to answer while I'm standing up here, Madam President?
So the Banana Factory's now voting at the Fowler Center, is that correct? Because obviously the Banana Factory's not there like it was last year, so where are those folks voting?
So I would have to double check. So
I'm
as of
looking at
the,
Mr. Vargo, like maybe
I'll ask
he
Mr.
has the
Vargo.
magic answer for
Yeah.
you?
That polling site was moved before the primary, so it had changed. It's in the same location as the primary. I believe it's the Windish Church that's currently owned by Lehigh. I could be, but that's my recollection, because I'm trying to think what the polling place, existing
Well, because
polling
obviously it's not there, so.
places.
how
Right,
do
it's,
you know?
yeah, the Banana Factory is not, you can't really vote it right there now, but I believe that's the polling place that was moved to the Windish Church, so.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for anybody? How are they set for poll workers and the voting, the LNA testing? Did he give you any data on that? I think I asked for that as well, because I know that was last week, correct?
it was last week, correct? I don't have the data in front of me, but it went well. And Mr. Comini had shared that. I was there for a portion of the day, and the testing, everything proceeded in typical fashion. And to answer your question related to poll workers, Ms. Hess and Mr. Comini and I met today, and I asked the same question, where are they? And Ms. Hess said they're in a good position, and everything is moving in typical fashion as it relates to administering the election.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right,
you, everyone.
thanks. Thanks for being here, for delivering that information. I appreciate it. And we appreciate what they're doing, I understand. Next, we'll have a discussion regarding the amending of the administrative code. The reason I put the next ones up is it was direct quote from Mr. Heckman in one of our meetings about if you want to do things, you can amend the administrative code, you could amend the home rule charter, and you could do a home rule charter study. And so that's why these are here. And everyone, by the way, they're saying thank you. The other folks on Zoom are thanking us for allowing the opportunity and said they would be here in the future if we requested. So we, again, appreciate you being here. What Chris left for me before he left was if you want to make an amendment to the administrative code, that gets done by ordinance. If you want to amend the home rule charter, that is done by a referendum. So we would have to vote on that, and then it would go out to the public before that gets changed. So, Ron, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
So when you made those comments, did you have anything specific in mind?
No, we were arguing or debating, I should say. I forget what we were debating at the time, and I think there was a sense that because the administration didn't do something or didn't answer something, that we should withhold a vote on a budget amendment. And I just said I think that that's self-defeating. If we think that we're not getting the information we want, and I think a lot of this circles back to line items and Graysdale and other things, that we should look at legislative remedies rather than saying, well, okay, if you're going to do that, then we're not going to support this. And I mean, look at Harrisburg and Washington, for God's sake. I mean, talk about a mess. So at a local government, you know, we're all neighbors. We should try to come up with ways to solve our problems without hammering and saying it's the R's or saying it's the D's and so on and so forth. I mean, it's cheap thrills, but at the end of the day, it doesn't solve anything. So I'm for all solving things. My concern was this: if we really are concerned about communication, if we're concerned about what's happening, you're right, Madam Chair. There's three ways council can look into the legislative body, the governing body of the county. I keep saying that. One day we'll realize that. Is it can do things that are legitimate and you know, that might address a situation or a problem or a concern, and it's one of those three things. Now, I shouldn't say that. The Home Rule Charter study is an overall, and I'd be happy to address that. But if you're going in order, you summed it up well. Amending the administrative code with an ordinance or a Home Rule Charter, we've done that with referendum. And so I thought when I brought that up, that's something that we should consider if there's some overriding issues ongoing or functional problems we think, or structural problems we see that we want to consider, like what applies to what, you know, because certain things would have to be a referendum and Home Rule Charter. A lot of times we refer to the administrative code, but really the administrative code, the charters are our constitution, and the administrative code is more or less like, okay, here's our management summary and how we're going to do things, and so that's all. I mean, I don't want to belabor this, but I just thought it might be worth a discussion if anyone's interested on each of these points. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the first thing that and I don't know if we could do one without looking at the other, but the one area I would really say we should begin to start focusing on is exactly what we presented tonight, the idea of elections and election commission. Because I think, like with a lot of other things that I've discovered in the time I've been here, there's sort of, it's not what it says or what it doesn't say. There's sort of holes where it's just silent, and then you have to make interpretation. And some of the interpretations is where we've gotten into trouble. So I don't see anything in the administrative code that gives the administrative side of our government the authority over the election commission or to be able to do any decision-making for them. And so I think that needs to be clarified. So I would ask that we take a look at that. And if we want to do that sooner or later, I think it needs to get done and have it be clarified. Not that anything has to be changed, but if it's not clear, make it clear. And that's what, again, this could be done by ordinance. So that would be the first area I would look at. I think some of the commissions and some of the authorities should be looked at. I don't know, some of them, are they required to record? Are they required to have video recordings of what they do? Are they all done in silence or secrecy? So I think that should be explored. So I don't have any answers. I have a few questions, but these are some of the target areas. I've been very concerned about the budget. I think we beat that to death, but the idea that money was moved and wasn't addressed as it's supposed to be with this council needs to be clarified and tightened, because so what if somebody moves money and they're not supposed to? Oops. And that's how we've handled it this year. So I think there needs to be clarification, and maybe there needs to be some parameters about at what point is there action taken. As far as the Home Rule Charter, I just think that there's things that aren't stated and that we get, I feel like this administration has gotten a lot of latitude, and increasingly so over the past 8 years. So I just think that needs to be cleaned up. And so I would ask that before the next time we meet, people start submitting in writing some of their questions or their areas of concern, rather than waiting till we're in debate. The other part of the administrative code is the procurement process, and I think I'm going to try to be bringing that off the table and finalizing that. So those are my suggestions. Is there's any other areas of concern by anyone or anything that comes to mind?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to be around. I'm sure many people are saying, thank God. But the thing is, so this doesn't really, I don't have a dog in the fight in terms of, well, I want to get at so-and-so or I'm upset about so-and-so. I will say this, in fairness to this administration, this is a trend, a national trend at all levels. We're getting more and more away from legislative, and a lot of times legislatures, as we're seeing now, deserve it. I mean, because they sit around and argue with each other or try to score political points. And people go, well, Jesus, we let a strong executive make the decision, for God's sakes. And so I just feel the country as a whole, and I'll just say this, is my perception, is moving more towards authoritarian feelings because they just don't see legislative bodies as that serious. Other than to places go, people get elected, they stay there forever, they collect a lot of money, and they get great benefits. It's a good job. So, I mean, the reason I'm concerned about the Home Rule Charter is this. I'm not concerned that there's really a major problem. It's just it's 50 years old. All right, so that's a long time. And we've already discussed and we've seen where there's been disagreements between the executive branch and legislative branch, which is of course par for the course. You're not going to solve that. But I'm just wondering, because we're a local government, that maybe it's time, after 50 years, not necessarily throwing anything out, you're not necessarily changing anything, but it might be worthwhile to take a 50-year review of our home rule government. And you've heard tonight an excellent thing. This thing with the Election Commission has been going on for years. It predates this administration. Arguments are made. I mean, Mr. Bargo, I thought, did a wonderful job of laying it out. And the fact that because we're a home rule charter county, it really somewhat complicates. Now, if I'm in the administration, I'm going to say, no, it doesn't. What we do is right. And, and a legislative person may say, well, no, wait, no, we're a governing body. And so I think some of the concern people have is they want their elections to be nonpartisan, at least people of good faith. And they want to feel that no decision is being made based on partisanship. And look, I'm in government, so I get it. But I think most people understand, hey, you know what? I can go ahead and vote, and it matters. That no one person is in charge of or makes the decisions on elections. It should be as independent as possible. And the home rule county is, as you pointed out, it really muddies the water. Mr. Vargas made that clear. It's very hard because we pay for things. The administration administrates. And I know an argument always made is, well, if the administration has to pick the person who's going to be on, and we vote, say, okay, yeah, put them on. It's like the election office. They hire, so in essence, they sort of run it. Now, different administrations have more hands on, more hands off. Over my 30-plus years, I've seen a lot of different administrations handle that differently. But I guess the bottom line is this. I don't see any harm. I know I brought this up once before, predating this administration. And people said, oh my God, you want to go back to the dark ages. You want to go back to commissioners. And that's a terrible way to go. It'll destroy everything. People will go back to patronage. Well, we have civil service. We have career service. So to me, that's no longer an issue. Whether we should do that or not, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think it would hurt, though, to empower or at least put together a commission or committee to review our charter, where we can say, and the citizens can come up and say, this is a concern I have, or they can ask, the committee itself can ask questions. The administration, whoever that is, can say, hey, here's the only way we're going to be able to function, or it won't function at all. So I don't know. I don't see it as a terrible thing to do. In fact, I see it as a healthy thing to do. But I know I've come under fire for mentioning that in the past, and I'm sure I'll come under fire for mentioning it now. But I don't think a review of a 50-year-old document is going to end democracy in Northampton County as far as we're concerned. So anyway, that's my take on that. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. And I had the same conversation with someone yesterday. I hear a rumor that you're trying to get rid of the home rule charter and you want to go back to commissioner government. And that is not what I've said ever, ever, ever. But I agree with everything you said, that a study is exactly that. It's a study, and there's so much more to this document than just who we are in the separation. We don't need to change any of that if we don't want to. But I agree. I think there's things that should be looked at after 50 years, and it's our responsibility to allow the citizens. We don't get to decide that either. That goes by referendum. And so we just put it forth, and the citizens will decide if they want to take a look at it or not. And then it'll go from there. So I agree with you 100%. You said a lot. It's hard to break it down. But I just want to say you got through the whole thing without a squeak, so that was pretty good.
That I've been told that that's an issue I have, Madam Chair.
An issue?
As it's saying a lot of things, yes.
No, I just mean it was all good. I agree with you, and probably because you and I have had conversations about it before. But I think people are also afraid at this time, like, oh, if we put this out there, who's going to come to the table? Well, again, I think we have to feel that we can trust our electorate. Like, we're all the citizens of this county. And so whether we sit in this chair or at a chair somewhere else, like, everybody has a right to make a decision about what form of government they have and how it operates. So I don't see anything wrong with this. But I do see, as you said, there's some concerns, or even, can we do an emergency amendment? Can we not? What can be an emergency? Like, just things have happened and evolved over 50 years that I think should just be addressed. So I'm
Chair,
pro making it happen. So,
Madam Chair,
yes.
If people want, talk to people who are around. That's tough, but talk to people who were around when this all happened. And ask them about the Big 8 and all these other things. Like, what was the impetus in the two counties to go to home rule charter? And there were some noble things, but then like most houses have basements. There were some basement reasons too why there were certain powerful, let's just say, powerful entities that wanted to see the counties be modeled as a home rule charter county. But you're right. I mean, it's not like anybody's denied any rights. I just think that sometimes we're hard. It's getting harder and harder to work together, and I don't know if we're going to solve that or not. But I do see areas like Mr. Vargo. I see quite a few of those at times where we just argue about, well, who's responsible for this? Well, you've allotted this, but we can decide how we want to spend it, and so on and so forth. And it goes back many years. It's not just Mr. McClure. Mr. McClure isn't doing anything out of the ordinary. So I just think in general, has nothing to do with party, has nothing to do with any specific individual. It has to do with the structure of our local government. And that's it. That's the only reason I brought it up.
You made another comment earlier about the idea of the legislative part and how it's being diminished You say nationally? Did I get what you said?
Well, I said people, look, people, if you think that a lot of people are sitting at home saying, those damn Republicans or those damn Democrats, that's inside Beltway talk for the most of us. Most people are just saying, Jesus, they get paid. They're getting their pay. Like I hear about Harrisburg, they're getting their pay. Somehow they get out of this. Washington, the senators and House reps, they're getting paid. So people are getting disgusted with the legislative bodies, and it's easier for one person to make a decision than a group of people. I mean, that's just human nature. So I get concerned about that. And I think that, it's worth looking at because of the reasons, that I've said. I don't think it should be controversial. I'm not asking that. I'm not even saying we should change anything. But I do think it's good to have a fresh set of eyes now on something like this. This is how we get things done. I mean, more and more, it seems to me, over my 30 years, we're arguing more and more over who has the authority to do what, who has the right to certain information, who doesn't have, you don't have the right to talk to this person. You don't have, it's just getting a little bit more tricky. And as I said, I don't blame any one person or any party for that. I just think that it's something we should look at. We want the best county government that is possible, period. And that's it. And if this is it, God bless it. If there needs to be some changes, then there needs to be some change.
But I also think that if we do have a separation of powers and we are the legislative body, if we don't stand up for ourselves and do what we do have the right and authority to do, then why are we here? And I think you've said that before. And if we don't stick up for our own rights, then why should anybody else take us seriously? Because I think, you stated that. And
well, Madam Chair, what I said was, I don't blame administrations necessarily. I don't blame the president, the governor, the county executive for some things, because legislative bodies have gotten argumentative, but they've also gotten lazy. If we don't assert the powers that are given to us, somebody else will be happy to assert those powers. That's just, as Hans Morgenthau said, the famous political scientist, nature abhors a vacuum. And if we create that, lazy legislatures are more of a concern about authoritarianism than any one person. I just, that's a belief I have. And yeah, I think county council at times is just laid back. I don't know why, but it just has. Just like I've said, if we have a disagreement with the administration, you've heard this phrase I've used, let's get a declaratory judgment. We pay our solicitor, they can go in front of a judge, it's not going to be a huge case, and say, look, the administration says this is how we read the law. And council says, well, this is how we read it. I mean, we've even argued over the definition of words, for God's sakes. So, I mean, then get a court to say, okay, no, this is right, or you guys are wrong, this is right. But we seem to have gotten more timid. That's all. That's my feeling, and I don't blame the administration one bit for that. That I blame council for. That's it. Once we're elected, we're there for all the people. I'm elected at large. I represent everybody in the county, and I don't give a damn what party they are, or if they're no party at all. It really doesn't matter to me once I'm in office. Now, when I'm running, things are a little different. But I mean, my fundamental beliefs have led me to be a Democrat, and I've been a Democrat since before most of you were born. So the thing is, it's just one of those things. I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm moaning and groaning about it. I just don't see it as a problem. Every now and then, you take the rug out of the living room and you shake it, and you get the dust out and everything like that, and you put it back in. So maybe, you don't necessarily get rid of the rug. So, I mean, I personally am in favor of a charter review, not getting rid of anything, but reviewing. And I'll make that my last state so people can go home and get something to eat.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comment, question? All right, again, I'm going to ask you for your submissions on an ongoing basis, and with that, I'll adjourn the meeting.
Peace out.